The fractures in the reckless tax and spending spree aren't just deepening in the Senate. House Democrats are beginning to wring their hands, trying to figure out if they can justify such extreme spending and taxing. And I must say, it certainly will require some creative thinking. Trillions more in borrowing when American families are already being pummeled by inflation. A sweeping amnesty with no effort to control the growing immigration crisis at the southern border. Tax hikes on American families and small businesses. Our Democratic colleagues are proposing the most extreme policy proposals that one might imagine in this one massive bill. So getting their members on board is half the battle, but we are now seeing the internal debates and discussions among Democrats wondering if this is the wisest course of conduct. Because there's no doubt about it, this is a massive amount of money. And Democrats are going to have to raise the debt ceiling by themselves if they want to write a check that big. This is where things get a little kooky. Even though this is a partisan spending spree, our friends across the aisle expect Republicans to join them in raising the debt ceiling, claiming that this should be a bipartisan effort. But it's clear Democrats don't require Republican support. They can attach this credit increase to the tax and spending spree bill and pass it with only Democratic support. The only problem is they don't really want to own it. They want political cover. They want to help us, they want us to help them pull the pin out of the economic grenade that they're about to toss in the laps of the American people. When this reckless tax and spending spree inevitably blows up, they want to be able to blame someone else. They want plausible deniability. But it's not going to work that way. Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, and folks on our side of the aisle have made it crystal clear on that point for months. If they want to spend alone, they're going to have to address the debt ceiling alone. Our Democratic colleagues can't cut Republicans out of the process when it's convenient and then beg for cooperation when they need someone else to blame. I have no doubt that our colleagues across the aisle will come up with a host of gimmicks to try and get Republicans on board. Some have suggested threatening to shut down the government or withholding critical disaster relief. To be absolutely clear, folks on our side of the aisle do not want a government shutdown. The American people and our economy are already experiencing enough pain. In my state of Texas, we've suffered enough natural disasters for me to understand how critical it is to get disaster relief out the door as quickly as possible. Communities impacted by hurricanes and wildfires do not deserve to be treated as political pawns on a chessboard. If Democrats want to charge $5.5 trillion to the taxpayer's credit card, they'll have to increase the credit limit themselves. And they can do it by themselves with the $3.5 trillion social welfare bill. And they can't treat disaster victims and government funding as hostages. Our Democratic colleagues already went on one partisan spending spree earlier this year, an additional $1.9 trillion under the guise of providing COVID relief when only about 10% of it actually addressed COVID. And that has fueled, in the opinion of people like former Democratic economists, office holders, Larry Summers, for example, who said that we are risking a growth of inflation which will raise prices on commodities and things that people need in their daily lives in order to live, and thus form an invisible tax. As it stands today, our debt is roughly 107% of our gross domestic product, $28.7 trillion and counting. Most of us can't imagine what $1 trillion is, much less $1 billion, but it's roughly $28.7 trillion